Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I am speaking to you from the verse. Now if you're not sure what the verse is, I encourage you to go to my website at rewritingtheverse.com, and that's where you can find out all about the verse, especially check out the updates, both written and all the YouTube videos are connected and linked there, so you can go and look back at any of them that you wish to check out. I am a past life regressionist and rewriter. So what this means is I have the ability to not only look at past lives, but I have the ability to rewrite them into a higher level outcome if needed. And I have been guided to utilize this skill specifically on this YouTube channel to help us move powerfully through ascension portals. This video is specific to the upcoming 6/20/2020 summer solstice. There's also a solar eclipse also on the 21st, so that back to back with the solstice is going to be an extremely powerful weekend. But I specifically asked my guides to show me a timeline related to the solstice specifically, and I utilized twin flame and divine masculine and divine feminine timelines when I'm working specifically with these portals. So this is a twin flame timeline that I will be sharing fully on this video. I will tell you the details. I've already completed it. Now normally I do these typically alone, and I have been able to come on here and rewrite live with you on here, but today went a little differently. As I was preparing to do the past life regression, I ended up having a call with a friend, dear friend, very spiritual friend, and it felt like, okay, it's time to do the past life regression. And she felt, yeah, we both felt that she needed to be a part of this one, so we did it together, which also meant that we did the rewrite together. So that's already been done, but I will again share all the details with you, and you'll be able to at least find out what happened and what major breakthroughs on the planet occurred as a result of this. So once again, very powerful. And I want to thank my dear friend for helping with this one. And she will be represented by the divine feminine that's in this past life regression. So thanks to her for helping hold that space so that we can get a major breakthrough in healing on the planet tonight. And of course, this takes us sailing forever upward, right, frequency wise through these ascension portals. So I think at this point I'll just go ahead and start telling you what we saw and what we experienced. First of all, today is the 17th of June, so we're really only about 3 days till the actual solstice this weekend, and so we're already feeling the impact of it, so that I'm sure helped tonight. But so we're feeling this energy, and this has already shifted the planet tonight. What's nice about this is we don't have to wait till the actual solstice to feel this energy surge. It shifted tonight. The moment the rewrite was put formally into place, the whole planet and the galaxy universe, I never do anything small, so this is always the micro of the macro, shifted tonight. And by doing this, we're now at a higher vibration, so again we'll be going through this upcoming portal even more powerfully. So I love it when it unfolds this way. Okay, so I will now share the time. The first thing I do when I started looking at a timeline is I want to know how far back we're going. And my guides shared that this is 3,800 years ago. So 1800 BC is the time, and the location is somewhere in Egypt. So once again, we're in Egypt, and I can't tell you exactly like what city this is near. There was a structure that, who knows, may be able to be identified. I didn't research it, but what I saw, the very first vision was, it was dark. Stars were out. Oh, actually, no, the very first vision was not that. Let's take that back, because I'm like, how did I know it was Egypt? The very first vision, actually, just a flash, was basically what I knew to be a scarab crawling on some sand. So this was actually, I think, them just to let me know, okay, this is where you're at. You're in Egypt. Now, granted, there might be scarabs other place, but they know that my association is that we're talking Egypt. And then they showed me, being out under the stars, that there was some sort of a structure. At first I didn't know what it was, a wall of some sort, and I saw two men sitting and standing near a fire right there. And when I could pan out farther and see what the building looked like, I want to say that it looks very much like the Pantheon. Is it Pantheon? Uh-oh, might be getting the one connected to Greece. Parthenon, I'm sorry. We're talking about pantheons in this particular lifetime, so in this one we're looking at right now, so that's why. The Parthenon in Greece. It looks very similar to that. It's got the pillars. It's in a very similar shape with all the pillars. And I got the word necropolis, actually, in association with it, which when I looked it up, it basically sounded like it represented like a cemetery or a place of at least honoring the dead or something like that, which, you know, that may be actually what the Parthenon is too. I don't know. Maybe that is really what it stands for, representing the goddess Athena over there. Well, it immediately had me start thinking, okay, what god or goddess is this one associated with? Because a lot of time and energy and material went into this huge building that looked like the Parthenon. Okay. What I got was the two guys outside of it were actually like security guards. They were basically there to make sure nobody tried to either vandalize it or steal relics off of it or whatever. That was really their main purpose. So they were there, but they never really went into the structure, and so they didn't know exactly what they were really guarding. Only one man went into this structure. I did not get a name for him. I'm probably going to have to figure that out. So he was basically like a priest. Let's just say that. So I might just call him the priest, just for simplicity's sake. Let's just call him a priest. And he would go down there at night. He'd take a torch. And so in the middle of the, I'm going to call it the necropolis, was a very large hole in the floor. Round, perfectly round. It was built that way purposefully in the floor. And on the sides of the hole, there was a staircase that went all the way down. Okay? Now also above that hole, there was a hole in the top of the structure too, so that actually light could come in. Now what was shown to me was, I don't know if you want to call it specifically an oculus, but something like that, where it's purposely created that way so the light can penetrate in. But it wasn't aligned with the movement of the sun. It was aligned with the movement of the moon. So only the moon would line up perfectly over that hole from the very top that would allow the moonlight to go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so it definitely was built in relation to the moon and honoring the moon. So what I saw was this priest with his torch going down and around this very deep hole. You couldn't see down it. I mean, if you looked, especially during the day, you certainly couldn't see what was on the bottom. It was dark. It looked dark. But only once you got down could you see. There were actually pillars down at that level too. I'm not saying I think they necessarily went all the way down, but it was built so that there was these pillars at the bottom as well. Just a lot shorter. Okay. And what I saw was that what would you call it? There was somebody down there. There we go. Wasn't technically a prisoner, but it was a place where that being was being held protected, and yes, being held there to protect it from the outside and all sorts of things. Well, I'll explain more why, but ultimately, yes, there was somebody there, and they did indeed have a shackle on their right ankle. So as I'm watching him go down and watching him go down, he gets to the bottom and he's standing down there. It's really dark. Even though, I mean, there's whatever moonlight might be coming down. It's really just the torch that he has to be able to see anything. And in the shadows, in the pillars, I can see a figure, a human-looking figure. Just the shadow of it. But we're not talking about an average human height. No, no, no. This one was probably at least 13 or 14 feet tall. And they were kind of leaning back against one pillar, and their legs and everything were long enough for them to actually have a foot propped up on the next pillar, which was quite a ways away from it. And they're just sitting there like that for a little bit. And apparently, I mean, the priest knows who this is, and I mean, they both know each other. That's pretty clear. In fact, he is the only one that ever goes down there. So the only person that being has any kind of direct in-person social interaction with is this priest, okay? So ultimately, eventually the person stands up and comes out of the shadows into at least the moonlight and the torchlight enough to be able to see what they look like. And the best way to describe it was, if you have ever seen the X-Men movies, specifically the ones that have Jennifer Lawrence playing Mystique, that is exactly what I saw. That look, the blue, when she's not shape-shifted anyway, in the movies, that blue color and kind of like slightly scaly, and the dark, or well, not dark hair, but I mean, yeah, it was dark, but it was straight down like that. I know Mystique does not have dark hair, and at least the Jennifer Lawrence version, I don't think she does. But anyway, but yeah, that's exactly what I saw. Only this version is 13 or 14 feet tall. Okay, would be considered a giant, right? Okay, this is not scary at all to the priest. Apparently, he definitely knows this being, and it was a female, by the way. It was a female. So she, in the two things here, the divine masculine, divine feminine dynamic here. Anyway, so these are the two that are ultimately going to change the timeline. So that's why I'm really focused mainly on those two. One other being will kind of make a presence known, but that'll be later. All right, so here's how she got down there, what on earth happened, why does she have a shackle on her leg. All these things had to be kind of downloaded to me. And what I understand is that she is actually the offspring, the child of some of the Greek gods. Especially the Greek gods that are connected to the moon. And so she's an offspring. However, she had to be hidden away pretty much as soon as she was born, really, really young. Because apparently one of the other gods was basically going around and trying to kill off any of the newer offspring of the gods coming in, probably ultimately just to preserve whatever power they had, or take whatever power that those offspring would have had and take their positions. Whatever the case is, oh yeah, they were wanting to assassinate her. And not just her, but her, definitely in this scenario. So she actually had to be hidden away. By the parents consciously said, you know, actually asked this priest to please take her, put her in a place where nobody's going to find her, raise her as you can, and but she just can't be, nobody can know about her or her location. This is why you will never find her. Well, now that the timeline rewritten, maybe you will find her in history books. Maybe all of a sudden this goddess that was even back in this first version was never recorded about. Things might have just changed. So anyway, so this priest took her down there, needed to put a shackle on her immediately because as a small child even, she wouldn't have known not to be climbing those stairs back out, you know. To keep her safe and all these things, he needed to kind of contain her, and the shackle on the foot seemed to be the best way. So, because he couldn't be there all the time. In fact, he only came down during the night. Part of the reason why it had to be nighttime, or why she couldn't go to the surface, yes, there was threats, but ultimately I think the sun was not good for her. She was not human, obviously. And so, for whatever reason, that was a concern, being out in the sun. But really, if she was ever seen by any human beings, if even those little security guards saw her, they'd be freaking out, you know? So, yeah, it wasn't safe for her to be on the surface either. So really, she spent the entire life up to the time of the, you know, what we're going to look at today, down there. She knew nothing else. She knew nobody else as far as an actual physical being in front of her, other than the priest. So, in a way, he was her caretaker, her keeper, or whatever, but you can't spend that many years with her, because at this time, I'm going to say she might be in early 20s as far as chronologically. Now, I'd say she acted a bit younger. In fact, she seemed very much like a middle teenager kind of personality or attitude or whatever that I'm going to share about. So maybe not what we might think of as the level of maturity of a 20-year-old, but definitely she would have been considered physically an adult. But yeah, when I told you how she was kind of laying back like that, it's just like you would, if you came into a teenager's room and they're all lounged on their bed and, you know, yeah, what do you want, Dad, or whatever. You know, it was very much, even though it may not have been expressed fully, he definitely saw her as a daughter. I mean, you can't spend every day of your entire life, really, with somebody, playing with them, raising them, all that, and not have a certain level of caring and even love. He did love her. He did. But one of the things that became clear in the past life regression was that she was a different species. She was not even from this planet, you know, and he was more of a typical human being. So as much as they were able to communicate, and even telepathically mostly, I don't think there really was ever a need for them to communicate verbally. There may have really been no way to. I also want to say that she comes from, if we talk about star seeds or where people come from as far as what their group is, she actually was connected to an insectoid group. Now, unfortunately, I don't know a whole lot of the actual names of different groups out there, you know, like I know the typical Pleiadians and the Syrians and things like that, but I don't know any actual group names for the insectoids, but that was the basic group that she was connected to. Okay. So very different than human beings, even though she was in human form physically, she was more connected to the insectoid group. Okay. And she probably was some sort of a hybrid as well, considering she didn't look totally insectoid, you know, the parentage and everything, but we know she's at least half. Let's just at least half insectoid. And that is the group that she would telepathically have connections with. So even though none of them ever physically came to visit her, she could actually interface, I guess, with at least some other insectoids. So at least she had that much. It was kind of like, I kind of saw it as like, oh, well, she's got the internet at least. You know, she can have her social media and at least talk with these other beings that are from her group, you know. So I think the priest supported that. He knew she was lonely down there. What a miserable existence to have to basically stay in, I don't know, maybe at maximum maybe 50 or 60 yards wide, and that's your life. You don't even get to go up to the surface to see what's up there. Yeah. So anyway, and yes, she complained about it over the years, especially as she got older and more of that more teenager-y kind of energy. Yeah, she complained about it, and on different occasions, you know, wanted to go to the surface or wanted to get out, wanted to do things, and he would have to remind her of the dangers out there, and, you know, people just wouldn't accept you, and then whatever other reasons why she couldn't leave. She had to stay where she was. Yeah, that was more and more of a conversation, believe me. Especially in the last few months before the scene we're actually going to look at. He could see her getting more, if you want to say defiant, more disrespectful, you know, like a teenager would. Pushing the limits, wanting more freedoms, okay? And he was having to say, no, I don't think you're ready yet, you know, it's really dangerous out there. And part of it also, not just on the surface of where they were at in Egypt, but if she were to go to, my understanding, if she were to go visit or stay with her insectoid group, if they were to come in or whatever, however she got there, he would not be able to go with her, even if he wanted to. Just the atmosphere and all these different things that it just he would not have been able to go with her. And he really was her protector. And also, at least for her and her group, apparently, maybe that insectoid group isn't necessarily the best at discerning danger or discerning things that were not good for them. So, especially considering she was totally isolated and have no ability to develop that skill, he was very concerned about her going out beyond where he could at least be with her and be able to be safe out there. So anyway, there were plenty of good reasons, I guess, why she needed to stay there. And she always had a shackle on her ankle. And he was the only one, I guess, that had the key. And he did carry it on him. And he had it on him this night. When he descends this night, he has that on him. So, okay, he comes down. He's not expecting anything unusual. You know, the usual banter, the usual whatever. They spend time. It's not a matter of that they don't spend time together. He comes down pretty much every day for at least several hours. You know, he does spend time with her when he can. This is like his main job even to help care for her. So it's not that there's no lack of time spent together, really. So, okay, but this time it's going to go differently. So I'm going to drink water here. Okay. So this time he comes down. There she is, you know, laid out like she's a teenager on a bed. And she does stand up. You can see that when she stands up, she's pretty much twice as tall as he is, or even more. If she's even 13 or 14 feet, probably more than half. He's only, you know, half tall, whatever. Anyway, she's tall. She's a giant in standards, but that's part of her God side. Her, you know, there's a reason why a lot of the structures, especially in Egypt, are so big. Why do you need a 30-foot statue? What if that was actually their real size? I don't know for sure, but I think that's a possibility. And I do believe that the gods and goddesses come in very different sizes and shapes and whatever. And she is tall. She's large. So anyway, okay. So it comes down, she stands up. It seems to be a pretty typical night so far. And once again, they start talking about her wanting to be able to go out and do things. Okay. So they don't show me all the details of that conversation until the rewrite. So I'm going to tell you basically what they showed me originally. So it seems like a typical night. She stands up. She doesn't seem upset. Then the next thing I see at the end of this conversation is she's sitting down, which just means she's only like, she's still not much shorter than he is as far as eye contact and whatever. And basically he said, "No, you can't go." All right. Now she has heard that phrase from him many a times, right? They've had conversations a lot about her wanting to leave or get out or do whatever. So the words weren't any different. But this time when he says, "No, you can't go," her eyes look up all of a sudden, because she's kind of looking down. She's not happy, I guess, with the direction of the conversation. And when he basically puts his foot down this time, oh, there's a different reaction than what he was used to. She, with her head still kind of facing down, her eyes dart up, look at him all of a sudden, and they are lethal. Lethal. Now, I'm not saying she didn't get frustrated and angry before and whatever, but it was not her nature to have that level of rage. That was outside anything he'd ever seen in her. So he knew enough to not underestimate that she could react. I mean, but even this was extreme. And all he felt he could do was, in that moment, was basically stand his ground, because she's standing up now and their eyes are still connected, but there's nothing but kill in her eyes. And that's exactly what she does. What I saw is they showed me that basically this conversation, she had much more emotions about this conversation this time. So when she heard those words that she had heard many times before, it was that emotion that had her basically shut down the side of her that, like, I literally saw a door, like, shut. And this was the door that had her see him as a father figure, as a, somebody she trusted, somebody she might just take his word for. Oh no, that door was slammed shut. And all she saw in that moment was somebody imprisoning her against her will. He no longer had an identity as father or anything like that. He was purely just somebody, a jailer, somebody to imprison her. And he had, well, once that happened, it had her actually be able to hurt him, which had never happened before. It hadn't even really seriously crossed her mind before. But now that he's just a nobody, and I wouldn't even say more of an object now than an actual human being, she reached out with one hand around his neck, right here, and raised him up and literally choked him to death. Now, she, with the keys on him and everything, she was able to unlock herself from the shackle and run up those stairs. Now, she is still not, I don't get any remorse from her at that point. She's still got that door closed. He was just an obstacle, just an object that is now been removed, and she can leave. She can finally escape her prison. Because in a lot of ways it was a prison, right? And even though she logically understood the need for it, doesn't mean she didn't, always feel like a prisoner. So anyway, so she, I think this is where they also told me, did they tell me already why? Okay. I'm trying to get the order straight. But anyway, basically what they were talking about that was different in this conversation, so I'm going to open that up more now, was I said that she had the ability to telepathically reach out to other people of her species in other locations, wherever they were, and have, you know, whatever connections they had, like social media. Well, apparently she had met somebody. It's just like meeting on the internet, right? I really felt the whole similar play out of the dangers of internet. You don't know who that really is, and if they're telling you the truth, and you know what, they want you to meet up somewhere. Oh my God, you know, you can't do that. That's crazy. You know, you could get killed, whatever, right? Same dynamic was going on here. That I don't think it's that the father didn't know that she was talking to young men as much as young women or whatever. She had not told him that over the last few months she had been talking to him, and it had become a little bit more intimate, and at this point she's in love, right? Oh, she's in love, and she wants to go be with him. She wants to go, wants to meet him, wants to go be with him, wants to go. And obviously, well, not obviously, but ultimately it would have been wherever that group, that insectoid group was, that he couldn't go to. Okay. So that's what was different about this conversation. And that's why when he said, no, you can't go, there was a whole lot of emotion wrapped around that conversation. And when he said no, this time she heard it as a jail sentence now. And that's what slammed that door shut about him being the father. And her emotions just of rage, that's the best I can describe it, rage, had her react that way. Ultimately, what they did show me in that first version, she goes on, she does meet up with that young insectoid, wherever that's at, and ultimately he does end up being, in part, being manipulated. He himself wasn't necessarily like an assassin, but remember I said that there were threats. Why she had to be hidden to begin with was that another god was trying to take out all the challengers. Well, that challenger, or that god, was behind manipulating this young man to pull her in, to flesh her out. He didn't know where she was at, and maybe there was suspected that she was, but he couldn't find her if he was looking for her. Well, he found her. This young man was used to, well, he was a man, insectoid, was used to pull her in, and then that way she could be handed over to him, which he did. That God finally had her, the one that was trying to capture all those years ago. And he wasn't just wanting to kill her, unfortunately. Not that that was a good idea either, but oh, he was about torture. It was a very horrible ending for her. Basically was dissected, if you want to be nice about it, actually. She did die. So, yes, Mystique is what I'm going to call her, actually. I'll just use that from the X-Men just to give her a name, but basically Mystique, she was a goddess, and she was alive. But again, the history books won't talk about her because, well, most of them probably didn't know about her. But she was a royal lineage, so eventually she was probably going to be in some way allowed to surface again, but well, it was too late. She did not become whatever powerhouse goddess that she was meant to be. And actually, what I was told early on in the past life regression, that she is actually an aspect of other goddesses from other areas of the world. So Diana, the goddess from the Roman Pantheon, is her. It's the same soul, basically. And Artemis from the Greek Pantheon. And I was told, actually, because a lot of times, you know, gods and goddesses will be lumped together or identified as the equal person that these other areas are. I actually was told that Artemis and Diana are not the same exact person. They are two different aspects of this same soul. Okay, that was an important distinction. That actually Artemis is the one that said, by the way, I'm not Diana. So for whatever reason, Artemis wanted that to be clear to everybody. But again, it's all the same soul, and Mystique is the same soul as these other goddesses. So whatever, I wanted you to understand that. So okay, well, the first version did not go very well, as typical, you know, but now we're working out the divine masculine and feminine dynamic here. I'm not really, I felt more like this was more divine masculine, divine feminine than divine, than twin flame in this version. But at this point, there's so much integration going on between souls and groups of souls that it very well could be a twin flame. But I'm definitely sure it's about divine masculine, divine feminine. Okay? At least this one is. So, okay. So my friend and I are on the phone. We've gotten this far. We see the dynamics, and then we say, okay, well, where is there to, you know, do the rewrite? Well, considering that one conversation is about all we get to see of them, of course it's going to be within the conversation. And what I was able to discern was more about what they thought internally as this conversation is going on. So I'll basically start with the priest, okay? So the conversation's going along, she's more agitated than normal, but ultimately now she's declaring, yeah, I met this young man and we've been talking and I'm in love and I want to leave to be with him. I want to go. I want to go and be with him. Now, granted, there was a whole conversation in the first version. The only problem is the moment that statement was made in the first version, the priest heard nothing after that. He was totally triggered by that statement that he could not really hear and be present to the rest of the conversation. The very first triggered emotional response or mental process that went through him in that moment was the fear of a father losing his daughter forever. And basically the sentence was, she's leaving me, or she wants to leave me. That was his initial thought. Triggered all sorts of whatever issues he had, maybe about abandonment, maybe about just, you know, he dedicated his life to her. How could she leave him? There's lots of different scenarios, but that was the initial response. Even though behind that there was the concern of her protection and all sorts of things that justified, you know, whatever he was ultimately going to say, but it was really that very first thought that slammed the door shut for him. Remember, she had a door slamming over here? And just saw him as a jailer from that moment on, or at least during that scenario. Well, he was now, that door was shut for him as far as being able to, in that moment, the answer was no. No, you're not leaving. Didn't matter what she said after that, he had already determined that was the answer, and he was not going to budge. So, as they're having their telepathic argument with each other, etc., there was no moving him. He had no space to be able to consider anything else after that. Now, she obviously felt maybe not felt it emotionally, but definitely could see it in his body that he was totally triggered, and, you know, and he's trying to control his anger, frustration, fear. Really, it's about fear. Really, it's about fear. You know, during my conversation with my friend, it was like, one of the problems with this planet is there's so much hate. Well, what is behind hate? What I got when I asked that question mentally? Fear. You take fear away and hate, like we know it to be, and the destructiveness of it cannot exist. But there is so much fear on this planet, and it's rampant even now, especially now on this planet, that people can do horrible things because they just objectify others. It's no longer a human being. It's no longer somebody with equal rights, if they ever were seen that way to begin with, but definitely, oh, you're different? I fear you. I don't understand you. I don't understand how you think, what you mean. And I don't want to know. Many times, it's not even that I can't understand, I just don't want to understand. It's so much easier just to go into hate mode. I'll stick with my people, my species, my whatever over here, and you're different, and, well, we hate you. Yeah. Fear is the core of that. And that'll come in, that conversation will come in handy at the end when we talk about the rewrite and how it affected things. Okay. So that's the first thing I saw, that, we better course correct that piece, right? About him being fully triggered and not being able to hear anything else, right? So if you see it, the parallel is they both close the door of seeing each other objectively, of being able to process that conversation without being fully triggered in whatever emotion they were feeling. And that interfered and ultimately led to a very negative outcome. So what needed to happen as part of this rewrite was the priest needed to open that door. And I could literally see a struggle going on. You know, that fear and that knee-jerk reaction, very powerful. And it took some effort to keep that door open of possibilities. And seeing, okay, trying to understand really how she's actually listening even, right? Okay, took some effort, but he, you know, I really got his attention and is like, okay, I'm going to listen, you know, breathing. You also need to understand, you know, he's raised this woman from a little tiny child. And like any father, he knew this day would come, right? That eventually she'd meet somebody. And eventually he'd have to deal with her desires and, you know, whatever. He wasn't looking forward to it either. So he was expecting, oh, I've met somebody. You know, even through her internet. There were few opportunities for people to meet her, but that was one way. Even he knew that it was possible that maybe she might meet somebody on there. But he was ready to have the conversation of, oh, you met somebody? Well, that's so nice. You know, oh, you know, tell me, not, I'm in love, Dad, I'm leaving. He was not expecting that. So that, and again, that was part of his old, really quick trigger there. He was not ready for that level of conversation. So anyway, he leaves the door open and he's sitting there really consciously trying to hear her, trying to, okay, maybe there's something here that, you know, whatever. And my friend, who was basically, you know, feeling and understanding what the other person in the dynamic was, she could at least appreciate, she could see the effort, okay? She could see the effort that he was trying to be open to the conversation. He was trying to, you know, just trying. He was trying. So she went on and talked about whatever she had said originally. And she had said this piece originally too, but like I said, he couldn't hear anything after that first sentence. So this piece never got fully developed, never got an opportunity to play out, and this is the part that changes everything. Okay? So, oh, we're in love. I love him, Dad. He's so sweet. He's whatever. And of course, he's also thinking, yeah, you don't even know him. You know, he could be some rapist, right? I mean, everything that goes on between a teenager and their social media, especially for the females and all the concerns, he was absolutely thinking that, right? But when she got to the part of, when she was sharing what about him was like, made her want to make this huge leap. This is what she said made the difference for her. He wanted to show her the world. The worlds, plural. Really, Earth was not a place that she necessarily wanted to see. She stood out like a sore thumb. There's people would like come after her with pitchforks, let alone whoever was trying to kill her. Anyway, it wasn't about Earth. It was about going other places, maybe to the home world or wherever else where he could be too. He wanted to show her the world. And I heard the song, the Aladdin song, A Whole New World, I think is what it's called. And because he really was trying to listen this time, that was what he needed to hear. Because the one thing, maybe more things, but the main thing that he felt guilty about all those years was how much she wanted just to go out and experience life. How she didn't get to even do the most basic things or even see the surface. She never got to go up to the surface even. And he always wanted that for her. He didn't like her feeling like she was a prisoner. But that's how she felt many of the times. So when she said that he could offer, that he did offer, and that actually he could do that if he was met true in what he was trying to do, he could really actually help her see the worlds. And in that moment, when he heard that for real, and he let it sink in, and he knew, you know, there was going to be a time, he didn't know exactly when, but there was going to be a time where she would be old enough to decide when she could leave. And this was the moment. This was the moment. And even as I was doing this, as we were talking about the rewrite, we didn't even put it in formally in place yet. As I was doing this and talking this out, I could feel my heart chakra, which was the priest's heart chakra, expand, and energy. I mean, lots of energy going through and coming from the heart chakra area as he realized, yeah, it's time. If she really wants to go and there's somebody that can show her the worlds, it's time for me to unlock that shackle. And the moment he did that, he didn't even say anything. Once he really got that she deserved it, he reached out and he unlocked that shackle. He basically said, if this is what you really want, then you're free to go. Now, the one thing that my friend relayed was one of the reasons why she wanted to go and spend time with this young man, insectoid man, whatever. And this happens a lot of times with humans now. If a young girl doesn't get the kind of whatever version of love she needs from a father to have her feel whatever love, if there's a void there, oh, they're gonna look for someone to fill that void. And it's not just females. It goes, you know, the males, they don't get whatever they need from the opposite gender, parent, whatever. If there's love missing, if there's a void in love, we as human beings, well, I say we as human beings, she wasn't human. As beings, apparently, we end up trying to fill that void with somebody who maybe can provide that. And that's what it seems like the main draw was for her to run off with this young man because he was a promise of her being loved. So we talked about it. And I'm like, wow, I really get that he saw her as a daughter, and can't believe he wouldn't have conveyed in some way that he loved her. And yeah, it was identified that he wasn't necessarily the cuddliest father figure. I mean, he didn't get up, pick her up and cuddle on her, but there were plenty of other ways that he did show her that he loved her. But again, it seemed to be that what she needed, what she saw as love, yes, because she was an insectoid and he was human, that created a bigger distance. But even human, a lot of times there are different ways that someone gives and receives love. And if you don't know that other person's love language, right, that's out there, there's different ideas of the way people relate love to each other. And I do believe a lot of those ways. I'm not going to go into details. You can look that up. There's basically 5 love languages if you want to look them up, at least from the author that is most known for that. Okay. What we realized, my friend and I, as we were kind of going through this dialogue with these two, even though he expressed love the best way he knew how, it didn't land as love out there for her. And if she didn't necessarily know how to ask for it or give it the other direction either, whatever, there was definitely an impasse in how to let each other know that you're loved. Well, the moment he reached down and unlocked that shackle, that was, I'm going to say, the first time, so 3,800 years ago, the first time ever that what I'm calling universal love occurred on this planet. Now, we'll go into details, and I'm not saying that universal love is not spoken about out there, but my version of it, what was really identified tonight for the first time, is a whole nother vibration of love. So, when she saw what he was doing and basically saying, you can go. If you want, if this is important to you, you can go. I'm not going to stop you. And she knew, it was clear that he does care about her, etc. But that moment, she felt loved. In that moment, she really got how much he loved her. And based on the fact that he was feeling all this heart chakra stuff and everything, it could have been the high heart. I know there's something called the high heart or cosmic heart as well. Can't tell you I know enough, but it was coming from this area. Okay, so whether it was the regular heart chakra or higher, there was something really high level going on in love in that scenario. So anyway, he got to convey the love that he felt. She got to finally receive and feel that kind of love, and in doing that, they got over the barrier. This is a universal level of love. At first I thought, oh, unconditional love. That seemed to be the closest to what I was experiencing, what I could feel, and what she could feel. On the other side, by the way, was that, that seemed to be the closest definition, but then I went, that actually doesn't feel high enough vibrating. Unconditional love, I think, tends to be like the highest form of it vibrationally. I mean, you're really selfless, giving of 100% without, any conditions, obviously. This was something even higher level. That's basically what I could say about it. It felt like a higher level of love exchange. And what we got was that this means no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, two beings can feel love for each other. And when that happens, you cannot see them as just an object anymore. You can't see them as less than an equal anymore. You get the power of this? I'm getting it again, just sitting here feeling it. This is unlike anything even I have experienced before. And I know that this just opened the door for this level of universal love on this planet, throughout the universe. And this didn't start just now. This is almost 4,000 years ago in Egypt. The epicenter of so many of our civilizations across the globe have been influenced, in either directly or indirectly, by Egypt. This has been available now for 3,800 years on this planet. It has had plenty of time to get out there into the masses and become an actual way of being now. You get the shift in that? You get the level of power that this is? It's been a very powerful week already energetically. And even a few days ago, this may not have been possible. But we are in, especially, we've been transitioning into a new cycle. There's been some layover or crossover between old and new right now. Well, this is the new energy. This is being created when we're closer to the new path, or really powerfully stepping onto it now. This new earth, this new path, timeline, this is the way to heaven. To whatever it is that you truly in your heart of hearts desire and want, love is the way. It's the only way. We want peace on this planet. We want people to stop hurting each other physically and otherwise. They have to see each other as equals. So, the energy is still coming in on this. When I was doing the rewrite and I officially rewrote this part, yeah, I felt the shift, but it wasn't until my friend and I really took some time to talk it out about what that meant that I later felt another wave of it come through, because the universe, needed more information apparently to really put it the level that we were intending it to be. It's all about intentions. Well, once we really identified, this is universal love, this is higher than unconditional love, this is the highest, I believe, available right now. Now that can change, but for right now, this is the new energy of this planet. This is the new energy of the galaxy and beyond. Okay? Very powerful. So once she got the love, peace, and received that, and saw how much her father, for all rights and purposes, he was her father, loved her, she said instantly she didn't feel that need to run off and get the love part of it from somebody else. But it wasn't just about that. What moved him to release her was that she did deserve to get out there and see the world and become whoever it was that she was meant to become. And now that he wasn't dead and was very focused on her happiness, we talked it out. My friend and I talked it out in the rewrite, devised a plan that, can I help you? Now that I know you still want to go, and that's okay, can I at least help you and give you some ideas, right? Like, for instance, instead of going and being just with him and you don't know him yet, maybe it might be better to go, we'll arrange something with some other people that we know are trustworthy, and you can go there and you can stay with them and you can still meet him and you can still spend time with him and get to know him before you really choose to be with him. and just get out there, and you could see the world in lots of different ways, not just by him. And together, that sounded like the best case scenario. So once that was really formally rewritten, we could see that ultimately the plan was foiled as far as, that guy pulling her in and handing her over. That didn't happen anymore. In fact, she ends up pretty quickly becoming a visible goddess now, right? She was hidden all that time, but now that it appears the threat is no longer there, where she's just, well, I'm telling you, this level of love is protection. In fact, I just got that right now. You want protection? You resonate at this level of love. You hold that vibration, those negative intended beings can't touch you. That was the best protection she could have ever had. So she does become a visible, very visible goddess in Egypt. Now, I've just been calling her Mystique through all of this. But as usual, gods and goddesses are identified with particular characteristics. And she is now the goddess of universal love, of the level of love that I say is different about it now. She's been holding that energy in Egypt for 3,800 years, and she still is responsible for holding that there and on the planet and beyond. I mean, we set the template, so this affects everywhere. And only she could do it. Like I said, she is another aspect of Diana, Artemis, and whatever other, Freya, or I don't know, Odin, whatever. She's always been very powerful, but this part of her was obviously shut down. And this, I mean, in the other, they're known, Artemis, I don't know, whatever they're known for in those other places, there's nothing wrong with those, but this level of love, this is what really is transforming the planet currently, right now. All lives matter at a whole nother level when you're talking universal love. That's where we need to be, to cross cultures, to cross nations, to cross oceans, even out there, to live peacefully with each other. Universal love is not only needed, it's now available for all. And this is the energy that we're taking, that we're riding, because it's already changed, through this 6/20/2020 summer solstice portal. Wow. I think it's still reverberating. So I am declaring that there is, well, at least visibly, a new goddess in the Egyptian Pantheon now. And what she holds on this planet is so needed right now. And love is where it's at. The highest levels. So, okay, so this is the end of sharing of the past life regression and the rewrite. I will link a short video that I will record after this that talks about the highlights of what I just shared with you. I will just pretty much identify the end results and the universal love piece of it. But you never know. Sometimes I get new insights or whatever when I'm recording it, so feel free to go and watch it. It's much shorter. So if you like this, please like, share, subscribe. I encourage comments. I mean, yeah. And actually, one thing, because I don't know the names of the insectoid groups that are out there, if you happen to know one, like I said, the Pleiadians, or that kind of knowledge of the name of a group, feel free to add it to the comments. And if not, that's fine. I mean, they know who they are. They don't need that level of recognition. So, but if you do. So that is it for today. I appreciate you. You know, it's after an hour here, so thank you for staying, for being a witness to this reveal. This is a reveal of a brand new, fully in her power, Egyptian goddess of universal love. So until next time, peace and joy.